Open plans are bright, airy, and perfect for all the imaginary parties we throw as socialites. But for daily life, they often don't work. I'm an architect, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through what's actually wrong with open floor plans and the 7-step method I would personally use to fix all the problems. The method is not going to be about adding walls or renovating. It's more about rearranging your furniture so it's even renter-friendly. And at the end, I'll run this whole method on 2 spaces at opposite extremes. So let's first start with why these spaces often feel a bit off. The size and shape of a space changes how you feel and act. For example, you automatically drop your voice in a cathedral, whereas a low-ceiling pub makes you want to settle in for the date with a drink and your friends. And it's not just the size. The room also doesn't have one clear job. It's a kitchen, office, dining room, and lounge all at once. These are really conflicting demands that leave every use feeling half-baked. The second issue is that in a large open floor plan, there are no natural boundaries, so almost all the furniture ends up floating in the middle of the room. And when your furniture is floating in the middle of the room with nothing solid behind you, it violates a human preference called prospect refuge, or we feel most comfortable when we have a clear view out, but we feel very protected from behind. The third problem is that there's almost no visual privacy. From the front door, you can see everything. The kitchen mess, the bed, the clutter. This is great at a party when you want to scan the room and quickly find your friends. Terrible when you're organizing a family intervention and the pizza delivery driver accidentally becomes part of it. And lastly, sound travels everywhere. Without walls, everyone's activities blend together in the same sonic space. One person is on a video call, another is blending a smoothie, a child is narrating their day to the cat, and the dog doesn't want to know. It's not that open plan homes are not usable. Plenty of people enjoy the togetherness, but for many, the constant audio overlap is one of the things that they end up managing more than expected. But please don't click off the video just yet because I'm being super negative about open concept floor plans, because the next part is all about how to mitigate against these negative downsides without building walls. First step, map the movement paths. It doesn't matter what kind of room or space I'm looking at, I always want to figure out first how people are moving throughout the space. If you ignore them, you end up with blockages and people are just going to be really annoyed walking into furniture feeling like they're in the way. So the first thing I do then is map those natural movement lines. Once that's done, the leftover spaces are zones where you can safely put furniture, knowing that it's not going to get in people's way. So in this studio floor apartment, you can see that the entrance is here. You have lots of windows along this wall and a bathroom in the upper corner. And after we've drawn in the movement paths, you can immediately see how this area here is basically a very high traffic area. So this is definitely too much movement there to put something like a bed or a sofa. It would be different, however, if the door is here. So once you've put in the paths, you have the pockets of space, decide what activities the space must support. And when you're placing these activities, try to place them in accordance with the intimacy gradient. It just means arranging the spaces of a home in a clear sequence that moves from the most public areas near the entrance through to a semi-private space, like the kitchen, the informal living, to the most private domains. So that's the bedrooms, bathrooms, personal retreats. It just doesn't make sense to have the very public and private spaces of your home almost overlap. So for example, if your bedroom is right next to the front door, it just doesn't feel great for the person who's using the bedroom because you feel like you're not in a very private, protected space. And it's also a bit awkward for people coming to visit who might accidentally walk into this room or see you coming out of your room in your pajamas. So then one of the really important things to do is to reintroduce this idea into an open floor plan. Make the most private spaces feel private, even if it's just physically moving it to the furthest part of the room. In the case of the studio apartment, that means putting the bed in a corner far away from the front door. And the living, more relaxed area can go in between the bed and the kitchen. Now that we have broken the space into smaller activity zones, even without walls, we should next give each pocket a clear identity. So when your eyes scan the room, you can immediately understand what each area is for. So the first thing I would do is to use rugs to define different floor areas. Even the hotel lobby, the size of a basketball court, becomes more readable the moment different rugs define the seating clusters. You can see that without them, the space stays one big undifferentiated volume. You can also use colors to visually denote different zones. hang clusters of light above specific activity areas is almost like an arrow on the ceiling pointing downwards going, hey, this is one space, this is another space, this is another activity. You can also break up an undefined volume by playing around with the ceiling height of a space. So perhaps in the bed area, you can introduce a bed canopy, or if the ceiling level is completely undefined and uniform, hang something above your head to show different zones in the space. You don't have to differentiate by only using the floor surface and the walls, or what little walls you have. The ceiling is also a massive, massive surface area. You basically just want to visually break down this large volume into smaller clusters of rooms. After we have visually defined boundaries for each zone, we want to make sure that people can feel good in the spaces by creating enclosures around you. Look at every single place that people sit or lie down. Does it have something that protects the back so you feel like you're never floating away? If not, try rotating the furniture or introducing a console, a shelf, a screen, plants, anything that is a little bit solid that can be placed behind a person that's sitting down. Also think in 3 dimensions. Add a vertical definition at head height, an arched floor lamp, a tall plant. So in this studio apartment, for example, it's inevitable that we will have an exposed back. Therefore, I would put either a bookshelf or a console behind the sofa. And on either side of it, I would put a side table with an overarching lamp above. So it feels a lot more enclosed. The next thing we need to consider is what you see when you're sitting down or when you're lying in bed, because what you look at repeatedly shapes your mood. Views of nature, sky, or a calm focal point lower stress. Views of clutter or mess keeps the body in low-level tension. So in the studio, I would definitely position the bed not against the window, but rather either facing it or next to it, so you always have a view. And I would orient the sofa so you can see both the television and have a sideway view to the light or to the door. So step 6 is all about controlling sight lines and giving yourself some visual privacy. So imagine you're standing at the front door. What will you see? So for this studio apartment, the biggest problem I would say is the bed being visible. If the private zones or messy areas are too exposed, try to insert some barriers. A screen, tall bookshelf, a curtain, a large plant. Anything that's going to block or filter the views of your most private part of your home from the most public part. Hard surfaces bounce sound around and make the room feel echoey and really noisy. You can tackle this by absorbing the sound, diffusing it, and dampening it by dividing the space into smaller zones with furniture and panels. Use soft textiles. The heavier the fabric, the better it absorbs sound. Bookshelves are excellent sound diffusers. I mean, no one's ever walked in a library and complained it's too loud. Unless you're the librarian and then you're just going around shushing everyone. Choose upholstered dining chairs and bar stools instead of hard ones. Instead of getting things in metal and glass, can you get things in fabric, linen, leather, wood? The softer the material, the less it's going to reflect sound. Large leaf plants help stop sound bouncing off large areas of glass. Thick rugs and carpets also deaden footsteps on hard floors. And if doing all these changes still isn't enough, you can add sound-absorbing panels or artwork on walls and ceilings, or even under large tables. And of course, don't forget about all the cabinets, cupboards, doors. Add in soft close mechanisms so nothing slams and gives your cat a heart attack. Speaking from experience as an owner of a very, very scared cat. So in this studio apartment, I would install soft blinds and fabric curtains to all the windows. Even the one in the kitchen, I would add like little cafe curtains. Also because I just like them, they look really cute. Soft rugs on all the surfaces. And for all of the storage that's here, maybe I can even add fabric to the doors. If you need to easily and quickly produce your own floor plans like the ones that you've seen in this video, you might want to consider using Rayon Design, who is also sponsoring today's video. Rayon is a CAD platform built for interior designers and architects, but if you're a developer, a real estate agent, or just someone who's interested in floor plans and layouts, it's still super useful to use and it's frictionless to start. You don't have to download the software. It's completely web-based, so you can just open it and start designing. If you're working professional, you'll know the pain of bouncing between so many different programs for drawing, rendering, presentations, schedules, and fortunately, Rayon Design condenses all of that into one platform. You can import your existing files or start from scratch, create accurate technical drawings from schematic designs, detailed plans and millwork, and transform them into client-ready presentations without ever leaving Rayon design. Rayon also has a library of thousands of CAD blocks with top, front, side views, including parametric blocks you can adjust right into your layout, or you can generate custom ones using the AI panel from images or text prompts. Explore different materials and finishes, and do transformations that would normally take forever. And you can apply custom properties to elements in your drawings and automatically generate link tables for specs, quantities, and cost summaries. You don't have to manually update your procurement list anymore, as it does it automatically. And because it's cloud-based, your whole team or friends or partner, whatever, can collaborate in real time from the same source. So if you want to try out a software that can help you draw floor plans or save you a lot of time, basically for free, I've put the link in the description below. Now that we have applied this 7-step method to a studio apartment, it's time to see how it would work on a much larger home. In the middle, we have an open concept, combined kitchen, dining, living, grand space. And on either side are the bedrooms, the utilities, and the garage. So let's focus our method on the open concept part of this house. So first, let's identify where all of the doorways are that leads to this central place and start drawing in our movement paths. This kind of divides the room into 3 pockets of space. So for the sitting room, instead of just putting one large sofa, I would try to arrange the seats so it's almost like a seating circle, where the arrangements of the sofa almost create their own enclosure. And I would put the kitchen shaped like so, with a really big island in the middle. For the dining table, I will put a long rectangular one. So now when you come in and you're visually scanning the space, you can see there are 3 distinct zones. And each of these 3 zones also gets their own pendant lights. Unfortunately, this house doesn't have its separate hallway, so when you open the front door, you directly walk to the back of the sofa. So I for sure would put a console table behind the sofa. Next to the armchairs, I would put a little side table and a plant and maybe even a table lamp. And then we want to think about the view of people who are sitting in all these spaces. So when it comes to this kitchen island, you could either put the seats on this side or on this side. But I would say that since there is a window looking out onto the rear porch, I would then place the bar stools on this side, where even though they have their back exposed to the front door, they at least still get the benefit of a nice window view. And when it comes to the seating, well, how do you decide which way to face your main sofa? Because you could have it either facing towards the dining area and the kitchen, or towards a window. And in this case, I think having a view out of the window is much nicer than potentially seeing the mess that is the kitchen. I know there are people who invest a lot of money into their kitchens where it looks really beautiful and they really work very hard to keep it clean. But if you were to imagine how people would actually live on a daily basis, first they might be cooking a massive family meal, then everyone goes to sit down for dinner, and then afterwards maybe you want to talk on the sofa or play some board games. And by that point, you probably haven't had enough time to go and clean up the mess out of this kitchen. So while you're sitting there, it's not great to be reminded of all the work that's still waiting for you after the kids go to bed, right? And in this way, it's much better, I think, than to just give yourself a bit of visual relief from the clutter and face slightly away from it. That's just my 2 cents. I think one of the biggest problems this house has is that from the front door, from all the seating spots, you can see directly into the doors of the bedrooms and the bathrooms. So in this case, if we're not building walls, I would definitely try to put some curtain dividers across this whole space, or some bookshelves with objects inside that acts as a visual divider. So at least when you have a lot of people using your public space, you can kind of visually, you can create a visual barrier between the private intimate spaces and the public ones. So that's my 7-step method. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like to know in more detail why I'm not the biggest fan of open concept plans, be sure to check out this video here. And if you like more guides on how to arrange the furniture in different rooms of your house, maybe check out this playlist right here.